Hey everybody, welcome back to Around the Emirates podcast with Sara Mousa, where I speak to guests from across the UAE about topics you want to hear about. Today I'm joined by Anne Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining the show. Now, I understand that you're an expert in therapy-informed coaching. Please share your story, talk to me about this title, and we can go from there.
Okay, so do you want to hear the background first, or do you want to hear about therapy informed coaching first?
I'd love to hear your background and how you got into it after that.
Okay, so this is my third career. My third completely different career, as it were. My first career was in international advertising, which I've loved all my careers, but this is by far my favorite. And I was always interested in the psychology of advertising and how to help people. And I thought that, in my 20s, very naively, that advertising could help people. But obviously, I found out that, giving them Coca-Cola or jeans or what have you doesn't really help them. So, although I loved it and it was just very glamorous, I got to a stage where I was like, okay, I'm not really helping people here. I am just selling products for people. So I decided I wanted to help people a bit more, and I decided that I would change careers and become a teacher, a secondary school teacher. Because I speak lots of languages, because I speak 5 languages, I thought, well, I'll teach languages. So I went and did my master's in French in France in 6 months, which was unreal. It was like so hard. And I was just in front of the Pyrenees, and like I couldn't go skiing. I couldn't do it. There was no day off. Like 6 months of a master's is quite hard. I did my PhD in 6 months, and then I started teaching. And I taught for a year in the UK, but then most of my teaching was done here in the UAE, in Dubai, in schools in Dubai. And then one day I was walking across the playground with my best friend, and I just like, I think I need to be a therapist now. I think kids have had enough of my time, and teaching them languages isn't actually getting to the bottom of how I want to help. I wanted to help them more emotionally and mentally, just have more impact on their lives. So I thought, okay, I've got to go back and retrain again and become, at the time when I thought I'd change, I thought I'd just become a psychotherapist. Back then it wasn't a thing here in the UAE. It wasn't allowed. So I thought, okay, well, the only thing I could really train in was life coaching. But I always knew that what I wanted to do. So the difference between life coaching and therapy is that when you come to a life coach, you tell them where you're at, and we look forwards to see where do you want to go to and how we're going to get you there. So we help you have your vision, and then we help you get there. And when you go to a therapist, you tell them where you're at, and we look backwards to see where you've collected anything from negative thought patterns, limiting beliefs, and negative emotions. And it's our job to help you get rid of them. So there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, there's all those types, and there's trauma, and there's all that. So it's about getting rid of that so that you can go forwards without of it. And when I was training, and this is probably when you're like the most difficult thing I had to overcome. When I was training, it was very taboo that you cannot do both. Like there's no way you can do coaching if you're a therapist, and there's no way you can do therapy if you're a coach. No, 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 absolutely no, complete taboo. It's still quite similar now. They want to keep those things separate, but to me, it made absolutely no sense, because what's the point of getting rid of all your past? But then you say, great, I understand, but where do I go to now? Like, what do I do? And what's the point of trying to make you go forwards if you're still carrying all those beliefs and those limiting emotions and limiting thought patterns that will stop you from having the success that you need going forward? So to me, they go hand in hand. Yet still, even to this day, it's like I kind of disrupted the industry, but there's still lots of people who say, no, you can't do that. Can't do that. Definitely can't do that. I love doing that. And my clients love that I do that. And my clients actually come to me because they say, well, that just makes sense. What's the point of like, not knowing where you're going in the future, or going in the future with all the stuff from the past? So I ended up training in both. I started out training in life coaching, but I knew I wanted to train in the other. So I trained in the other, and I practice a mixture of both. Like, so depending on the client, they either need 20% of one and 80% of the other, or 10% one and 90% of the other. You get to know once you get to know your client.
That is so cool. Like I didn't know you could really merge those kind of two different areas in life. I mean, I love the fact that, people kept saying no to you, or like this is unheard of, or this is like frowned upon, but you wanted to do it anyway. And I love the fact that you didn't stop at just one career. You didn't think, oh, like, this may not work. You kind of still persevered and you were like, you know what? I want to do the trainings. I want to do something different. I went from one career to another, and like that's not easy. So kudos to you for doing that. And you talked a little bit about the challenges that you faced. What would you feel is something that was really impactful, or like kind of an experience that you went through to that helped kind of mold who you are today?
So one of the things when I was changing to my third career, obviously I was a bit older by then, and the amount of people sort of said to me, no, you can't do that. Like, what about your pension? What about your savings? What about your salary? So I was in a salaried career, and I actually didn't know a single person who was an entrepreneur around me. And I didn't know a single person who actually made their own money and was in charge of making their own money. It didn't stop me. I didn't actually stop to think about it. I just thought, right, this is what I want to do, so I'm going to do it. But the amount of people who were, you can't do that. You definitely can't do that. So the amount of people who, I think they're in their comfort zone, and they're either scared for you that you're breaking out of your comfort zone, and they're so in it that they're like, this is what you have to do, and this is how life has to be, and this is life's path, and you can't change it. Or they actually secretly want to change, but don't have the courage to change, so they don't want you to change either. And I had that both times when I changed both careers. And if we look at my children, what's important now is your skill set, not your knowledge. I mean, we've got Google. We don't have to keep all this knowledge in our brain anymore, but it's how you use this and skill sets. And my children have said that they're going to have 5 completely different careers. And I completely understand that. I got to a stage in I loved my careers, but then I was stagnant. Like, not that I was being promoted and I did do really well and whatever, but it's like, okay, this isn't enough. I need to do more. But so many people want to say, no, you can't.
I hear you. I love the fact that you didn't necessarily let the fear overcome you when it came to like, oh, I don't want to do like the 9 to 5 and have a salary job anymore. Like it's extremely risky to do something like that. But instead you were fueled by your passion, your ambition for doing something that you love. You were not satisfied about your career, but you changed it. You did something about it that was different. And it's okay to have more than one career. It's okay to find your passion later in life. And that leads me to my next question for you, Anne. What advice would you have for people that are listening here today that might be a bit scared to take that step forward, or might feel like it might be a bit too late in life for them to do that?
So before I changed into my third career, I had done a lot of work on myself, and I had figured out who I am. I had also figured out what my values are. Now, most people don't actually know their values. If I ask them, they might know 4, 5 at the most. And we live our life by about 20, but the 15 that we're not actually verbally saying, we're just doing, but we don't realize we're doing, we assume is common sense. And then we assume that everybody else has the same common sense. But I'll give you a list of 400 values. So I could have 6 people and they're going to have a different list of 20 values. Nothing wrong with any of these people. They don't necessarily should be in each other's tribe. Um, so when I say to people, and this is mostly talking about career, I talk about lots of different other things, but when I say to people, like, do you enjoy your job or do you enjoy your career? A lot of people, surprisingly, a lot of people will look at me as if I'm saying, have you been to the moon? It's like such an idea that's just out of their comfort zone. Like, you're meant to enjoy your job. What? Like, you don't enjoy your job. You just go to job to get work, and then you enjoy your hobbies. I was like, well, what about making your hobby into your job? And then quite often I'll ask them, what did they play with when they were little? Because what people play with when they're little is actually quite telling. Um, so I'll have people, I don't know, I've had someone who was working in publishing, but when I asked her, she's like, well, I used to line up all my dolls and then make worksheets and give it to them and teach them. And I was like, you thought of being a teacher, and people who then play Lego and want to put bits, have you thought of being an engineer? It seems obvious, but people then never go back to what did they play with. When I was really, really small, I actually used to line up all my dolls and make them have an argument, and then I go in and cancel them, even at the age of 4. So it's like, this wasn't meant to be my career. Um, and then some people say, well, no, if my passion or my hobby turns into career, it's going to get spoiled. Can't do that. Like, we have to leave it outside. And the idea that you can turn your passion, your hobby into something that you love doing and also have a living from it. Um, I I think once you know yourself and once you know your values, it's lining up your job and your relationships and your friendships and your hobbies to your values. that's really something that people should look at. It's like that's when you call living life in the flow and everything aligns. Um, so maybe stepping out of what is seen as the norm, like you have to have a job and it has to be salary and you have to be paid every month, you know, and it has to be safe. Especially in this country. In this country, you have so many opportunities to do, you know, what you want. And then some people, coaches especially, they will begin to get trained and then they'll train more and train more and train more. And they never take that leap into doing it because they're too scared of doing it. And it's like you were saying about me, I didn't listen to the fear. It was actually everybody else's fear I didn't listen to. Because I knew I could do this and I wanted to do that. And inside I knew this was great and I could do it. Um, but yeah, don't listen to the fear.
I really appreciate that. I like the fact that it's something that you listen to your own thoughts, your own gut instincts, and you were honest to yourself. You didn't consider the fact that other people, they can share their opinions with you, but that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to follow what they say. And I love the
Mm,
fact that you compare it to what we did as children, like those activities, like the personality traits come at an early age. We just tend to like not acknowledge that. So thank you so much for sharing such a beautiful story and beautiful perspective. Like these are things that we just don't think about, and I'm really honored to have been able to share that perspective through your story today.
my pleasure.
Thanks so much, Anne. Take care. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye.